Thank you very much indeed for your time, as always. No doubt it was a busy meeting yesterday. So the understanding is that each province will throw up about three names, three nominations, and then the decision is made. But one of the issues was that the lack of, well, let's say it, 2 women premiers out of the 7 that we understand. The 8th one is still to be announced. What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, you would know that, maybe let me first start by greeting your viewers. What happens is that guided by the resolutions of the 2007 Polokwane Conference, provincial executive committees would meet and recommend 3 names to the National Executive Committee. This will be names of their preferred nominees for the position of premiership. Once they submit those names to the National Executive Committee, the NEC would then deliberate, and upon deliberating would then emerge with what becomes the final package, which would then be communicated as the preferred nominees that different legislatures, when they open, would be expected to support, especially our own ANC deployees in those various provincial legislatures. So it was the case in this instance. Provinces had submitted their names, and upon deliberation, the National Executive Committee affirmed decisions that mostly came from, actually decisions that were affirmed largely came from provinces. The provinces have put forward motivations on the preferred names that they had brought forward, largely to looking into the issue of stability in those provinces, making sure that they continue to consolidate the unity of our own structures, but also making sure that there is cohesion. Because when you make decisions like this, you have got to make sure that at the center of everything else that you do, you consolidate the unity of our people on the ground. And then what we then said, if you looked at the statement that the Secretary General had issued yesterday, was to then say, in an instance where the premier is a male, then 60% of the composition of the provincial executive will have to be females. But also, without fail, and this was quite decisive coming from the ANC National Executive Committee, that almost all provincial legislatures, speakers should be females.
Will be women, yeah.
We also went further and said that there must also be a biasness towards young people as well, while we also focus on the retention of skills.
I want to talk about the generational mix in a short while, but we've been getting reaction with regards to the list, and in particular, the women representation on the list. I want to play a clip for you now. It's the ANC Womens League. Let's listen to what they had to say. We'll talk afterwards.
We believe that the ANC is an epitome of gender equality, and it should be a deliberate agenda for the ANC to have 50% parity, as it is being prescribed in the constitution of the ANC Rule 6, that in every position that we elect, we should have women at least 50% minimum.
According to the statement we received, the NEC further agreed that in provinces where premiers are men, then at least 60% of the provincial executive must be constituted by women. And it goes on to say there was consensus that in instances where the premier is a female, there shall be at least 50-50 representation in the provincial executive. Is this good enough, Meoho?
It's not good enough. It is good, but it's not enough for women. We wanted to have fair representation in premiership, in ministers, in speakers, including in presidency. We wanted to have a fair representation. It should not be a by-the-way issue. It should be our agenda, all of us, not only women in the ANC, but it's a societal issue, whereby we make and have an agreement in terms of the convention that we'll have to push for gender parity.
You say it's not good enough. You're calling for fair representation. Why didn't you get it?
You are in a society, especially we as South Africans, not even around South Africa, in the world, where patriarchy still exists. People will not feel that women do have the same capacities as men. They will begin to say, you need to capacitate, you need to train. Whilst we feel as women, all of us have been trained. As women, all of us are capable to lead. All of us, we do have unique qualities of leadership.
Well, there you go, the reaction from the ANC Women's League. Pule, she mentioned that she was talking generally and worldwide that patriarchy still exists. Does it still exist in the ANC?
The ANC's constitution is quite enabling. It actually forces us to make sure that we have got at least 50% of those who are in our structures are women. When we go to our own conferences, the delegates to our conferences, it's actually a rule and a practice in the ANC that at least 50% of the delegates to conferences should be females. So meaning that you can actually have more than 50%, 50% plus one of what constitutes a national conference of the ANC, a provincial conference or a regional conference being women. This shows the deliberate intent on the part of the African National Congress to make sure that women play a decisive and active role in structures of the African National Congress.
But would you agree that unity and cohesion played a big part in the choice of these premiers?
Well, it was more about stability of those individual provinces. It had to do with renewal. It had to do with fostering unity. I mean, for instance, take a province like Mpumalanga. All of the candidates, premiers that they brought were women. You know, so I'm just saying that there are things that we are not saying in our statement, which if we were to say, you'll actually see that there are attempts to make sure that women play an active role. You will also know that the Northwest, for instance, is still yet to be finalized.
Yeah.
You know, because there were a number of internal issues that needed to be attended to. You'll also remember that an intervention was made in that province by the National Executive Committee of the ANC. There is also a government intervention that is ongoing there. Of course, linked to that are engagements that are happening together with the ANC Womens League to make sure that in whatever we do, we make sure that in the 6th administration, especially at various provincial legislatures, women play a much more visible, active role.
Yeah, I know it's the prerogative of the president to pick his ministers. He did say when he was voting, I remember, it says that he alone will choose these ministers. But, you know, for when choosing these ministers, do you think we're going to get a more even split with regards to women representation?
Well, I can tell you now that President Ramaphosa is committed to the empowerment of women. He says it all the time in our closed-door meetings of the National Executive Committee that, commending the role played by women even during these elections. So it is expected that even in the composition of the National Executive, we are going to see women playing a much greater... Of course, it's a prerogative of the president, but given the posture that he has taken himself openly out there, even during the campaign, appreciating the role played by women, we're going to see a lot of them being inserted into that national executive.
Well, let's talk about the posture that the president of the ANC has taken and take us into that NEC meeting yesterday. What was the mood like?
It was... We were at one in terms of what needs to happen with the unity and renewal of the African National Congress. We were at one in terms of stabilizing our own provinces. We were at one in terms of making sure that those that are deployed as premiers and ultimately as part of the provincial executives and legislatures do everything they can to make sure that the manifesto of the ANC is taken further forward. But you'll also remember that this was a special NEC. It had limited itself specifically to finalizing on the question of premiers.
What's the next step?
Well, the next step now is we'll have... there's an array of meetings that are planned for. We'll have an NEC that is supposed to be sitting in the next few days. Because remember that there will also be this inauguration that needs to take place. There is the swearing in of members of parliament that needs to happen. There is the constitution of various provincial legislatures which needs to take place. So over the next 2 weeks is going to be a very hectic period as we will all be witnessing new governments being formed in provinces and at the national level.
What about the Northwest Premier? Why wasn't that announced? What's the challenge there now?
Like the point I'd already made earlier, that you would remember that the ANC had made an intervention in that province. As matters stand now, we have got a provincial task team. We also have got a rapid response team, which is also dealing with a number of issues there. And that the rapid response team is being led by the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, together with other cadres in our movement, Comrade Mamkosa Dlamini Zuma, Dumo Dlamini. And in the PTT, you have got Comrade Obed Bapela, who's the convener, Mamuluku Kubai, who's the coordinator. There is Comrade Hope Papo and Comrade Amos Masondo, who are part of that team. So you have seen during the electioneering period that they were spending a lot of their time in that province, making sure that there is stability, making sure that our comrades in the Northwest Province work together so that the ANC could have the kind of victory that we have since witnessed. So when we concluded the National Executive Committee, we had said that we needed to just deal with some of those internal issues. I can assure you and the people of South Africa that in the next few days, an announcement on the Northwest will be made.
Look, you've got a mandate of about 57%.
Yes.
There's great expectations from the people that voted you in order to produce what you promised along the campaign trail. How much of pressure is President Cyril Ramaphosa to pick the right cabinet and to get out his message, but on the other hand, to balance, as you say, the unity and the social and the cohesion in the party?
Well, I can tell you now that the president of the African National Congress is committed and has expressed it himself that there is a need to increase on efficiencies in state institutions, in government departments, so that the blueprint that the African National Congress has put forward in the form of its own manifesto is attained, so that the commitments that we made during the campaign trail are achieved. You would know, and this the president spoke about even during our own, should I call it a street bash, where we had convened, invited our volunteers and supporters to thank them for the role that they played. The president did emphasize that we need to make sure that there are jobs, especially for young people. We need to make sure that we increase on efficiencies in state institutions. The president did say that we are not taking for granted the confidence expressed by the people of South Africa, and that all of the things that we said we are going to do are going to be done, so that we could be able to forge ahead and move with the people of our country in growing this country.
Look, we heard the SG yesterday talking about his relationship with the president.
Yes.
He called some of the allegations rumors. He says they're working well together, talking about this being a collective effort led by the president. Get us in there. Tell us about this relationship currently. Would you call it a sound, good relationship?
Well, I can tell you now, the president and the secretary general have got a sound, good relationship. Actually, all of the officials. This was exemplified by the role that they played. I mean, the president was on the campaign trail. Deputy President Didi Mabuza was on the campaign trail. National Chairperson Gwende Mantashe was on the campaign trail. Secretary General Ace Magashule was on the campaign trail. Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte was on the campaign trail. Treasurer General Paul Mashatile was on the campaign trail. All of these officials had spent weeks on end on the campaign trail. And all of them have been communicating one singular message to our people, that we need to make sure that we all stay true to the renewal program that the ANC has spoken about when we initially launched the Tumamena program. We also said that the best way, and this was said by our own officials, that the best way to grow South Africa is when there is greater unity in the ANC. And we have seen, with the kind of confidence expressed by the people of this country on the African National Congress, this means that a stronger and united ANC will be able to bring will be able to bring a greater support.
Well, let's test that. We've been asking our viewers to send us their thoughts with regards to these lists that have been released with regards to the Premier. I want to put up one of the tweets here on the big screen. Let's put it up here. Let's see what Teddy has to say. It says, I'm worried about how the ANC takes decisions. They always refer to the Polokwane conference where they took the decision which led to the 9 wasted years. The decision taken from the conference failed the country. Why should they stick on those failed decisions, Pule?
Well, you would know when the ANC outlined its manifesto going into these elections, it drew its manifesto from a research process, which was guided by science. We had established what are the challenges that still engulf a number of our communities in our country. And we were able to then say, what are the things that needs to be done to mitigate the situation as things stand? And this was the one singular message that all of the entire leadership of the ANC have taken to the ground. If you joined any of our campaign trails, you will have discovered that ANC comrades were communicating one message. So it was about the mantra, many voices, one message.
There seems to be another mantra that's going on, is this phrase 9 wasted years. What is your thoughts with regards to that? There's been some pushback, I understand, from the ANC saying it wasn't the case. What's your opinion?
Well, we wouldn't even want to be drawn there. We have got a program. We have got a program to grow South Africa. What should be happening is that we must be assessed on the kind of a manifesto that we have put forward. This manifesto is a blueprint. It begins to say, what are the kind of interventions we're going to make to grow the economy? What are we going to do to make sure that we continue giving young people free higher education? What are we going to do to improve our health system in the country? So we should be assessed on the promises we've made. We've made a promise. President Ramaphosa must be given a chance, together with his executive, to roll out their sleeves, drive forward the kind of a program that they've already outlined to make sure that we all join hands to grow South Africa. I think that for us to make this country great again, we need to work together and be at one.
All right, Pule, let's leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for coming in and explaining this selection process. No doubt that the ANC will have their work cut out for them in terms of picking this cabinet, and we will be keeping a close eye on that. Thank you very much indeed. That was Pule Mabe, the ANC National Spokesperson. Okay, let's go.